rotation of Earth's inner core may have paused, and it could even go into reverse.
Its magnetic field is the basis for all modern navigation.
We don't perceive that the continents we live on are moving. After all, an airplane travel between Europe and Africa does not take 5 hours one year and 3 hours the next. However, the continents are steadily shifting relative to one another. In the early 20th century, a scientific theory known as continental drift was suggested to explain this migration of continents. That theory was first dismissed, but it paved the way for another theory known as plate tectonics, which scientists now accept as an explanation for how the Earth's continents move. Pangea was a continent that existed nearly 300 million years ago and was divided into North America, South America, Africa, and Europe, with no human involvement. The land just parted and formed the continents that we know today. But how are these changes taking place, and what can we expect from such severe shifts? If you're curious about how this might affect you, keep watching. According to the cataclysmic pole shift theory, there have been geologically rapid shifts in the relative positions of the modern-day geographic locations of the poles and the Earth's axis of rotation, resulting in calamities such as floods and tectonic disasters. There is evidence of precession and axial tilt variations, but these occur on far longer timescales and do not entail relative motion of the spin axis with respect to the planet. The solid Earth, on the other hand, can rotate with regard to a fixed spin axis in what is known as a true polar wander. According to research, the last 200 million years have seen a total true polar wander of about 30 degrees, although no super rapid shifts in the Earth's pole have been discovered. True polar wander occurs at a pace of 1 degree or less per million years. Two geologically rapid changes of real polar wander may have happened between 790 and 810 million years ago, when the supercontinent Rodinia existed. The Earth's magnetic poles changed by about 55 degrees in each of these. Pole shifts are global calamities that occur when the entire Earth's outer crust moves all at once. Areas near the North and South poles migrate thousands of miles toward the equator, causing ice caps in milder latitudes to melt, while areas near the equator migrate away from the tropics and into colder climates. Some previously warm areas are moved to the new poles, where they experience a sudden deep freeze and will soon be covered by new ice caps. Land near the equator drops below sea level as it advances into the equatorial bulge. At the same time, for the first time in a long time, land that was previously underwater rises to the surface. Professor Charles Hapgood was one of the most well-known individuals who proposed the pole shift. Despite the fact that he wrote several books on the subject, including Earth's Shifting Crust, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, and Path of the Pole, he kept changing his mind and making statements that appear to contradict each other when it came to predicting how quickly a pole shift could be catastrophic. In Path of the Pole, he discusses Ernst Deutsch's book Polar Wandering and Continental Drift, in which Deutsch contends that the pole shifts occur very slowly. He then discusses how Deutsch discovered evidence in Scotland of a crustal shift occurring several orders of magnitude faster than he expected, which he felt could have been hundreds or tens of thousands of times faster. According to Hapgood, based on what they could discern, the pole moved from his old home to his new one in a very short period of time, much less than a millennium. So, was Hapgood lying because of politics and peer pressure from academics who only accepted slow changes that suited their uniformation models and ignored evidence of unexpected disasters? Or was he lying because of something more sinister? Hapgood stopped being cautious and began to take risks at some time. He should have known better, having previously worked for the Office of Strategic Services, the CIA's predecessor. In 1982, Hapgood wrote a letter to co-author Rand Flem Ath of When the Sky Fell about a new book he was working on. Hapgood mentioned in the letter that the forthcoming book would feature intriguing new content that went much beyond the cautious analysis of his prior book. He told Flem Ath that he had significant evidence of an entire cycle of civilization in both America and Antarctica, indicating high levels of science. Hapgood may have discovered information that the government did not want public because he was killed by an automobile before he could publish his new study. We'll never know whether this was just terrible luck or a deliberate scheme. Surprisingly, he isn't the only one who believes the pole shift happened fast and caused widespread devastation. In the Adam and Eve story, a lesser-known book by Chan Thomas, the author detailed his hypotheses, one of which discussed the movement in the poles. Although the original book is no longer available, the CIA did print a truncated version of it. As a result, you can guess how much of its crux is gone. So, who was Chad Thomas, and why was his book so highly censored? What information may it hold that prompted the CIA to intervene? Thomas gave evidence of an impending pole shift that will cause a calamity, and he emphasized that these pole movements are cyclical. In fact, at nearly regular periods, some type of natural disaster wipes out almost all human life, and we have to start anew. He believed that the current civilization was the sixth advanced civilization to rise on Earth, and that many more civilizations may have been far more cultured and advanced than we are today. However, it is difficult to corroborate because the further back one goes, the more difficult it is to know for certain. Mostly because some of these civilizations lived on continents that no longer exist. Regardless, Chan believes the situation is clear. He believes the pole will move quickly, and when it does, destruction will follow in its wake, obliterating all in its path. There will be no warning, just a subtle rumble that will develop from inaudible to a thundering boom as the tremors begin, but it will be unlike any earthquake in history. Mountains in California will tremble like ferns in a breeze, while the Pacific will shift back and pile up into a mountain of seawater more than 2 miles high before racing eastward. This watery mountain will move at 1,000 miles per hour, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco as if they were grains of sand. The reason for such strong winds is that the Earth spins at around 1,000 miles per hour, but we don't notice since everything on the planet is spinning together: the land, the ocean, the atmosphere, and everyone on it. Thomas believes that when the pole shift occurs, the Earth's air and water will continue to spin, but the land masses will come to a halt in many places, which is when the Earth's molten sublayer will also break through and disseminate a sea of white-hot liquid fire. All vestiges of human civilization will vanish in a fraction of a day. The wrath will march on for 6 days, and the ocean will begin to calm on the 6th day. The base in the Bay of Bengal, just east of India, would now be at the North Pole, while the base in the Pacific Ocean, just west of Peru, would be at the South Pole. In the newly established polar zones, fresh ice caps will form. Greenland and Antarctica, which are now rotating equatorially, will emerge with lush tropical greenery at that time. Yes, this sounds like the end of the world, but it's not the only change to be concerned about. Another movement in the poles that is finally being discussed today is the magnetic pole shift. Another potential that we may have to deal with is the difficulty that comes with the weakening magnetic poles. And no, it will not take 1,000,000 years, not even 1,000, but only the next couple of hundred. If the Earth's magnetic field weakens significantly, it might collapse and shift magnetic north to south and south to north, causing major problems for the planet. This will happen whether we like it or not. It's just nature, which makes it even more terrible. The truth is that we might be heading straight for this. Dr. Nicolas Thauveny of the European Centre for Research and Teaching in Environmental Geosciences in Aix-en-Provence, France, explained that the geomagnetic field has been weakening for 3,000 years, and that if it continues to weaken at this rate, humanity will be in a critical situation in less than 1,000 years. Dr. Thauveny is one of the leading people in charge of the Edifice project, which has been functioning since 2014. He and his colleagues have been researching the Earth's magnetic field's history, such as when it has reversed directions in the past and when it might do so again. The movement of liquid iron inside our planet's core is the primary cause of its magnetic field. It has always been a part of the Earth, but its polarity has shifted several times during the planet's history. It can take up to 1,000 years to complete each flip, which has occurred up to 100 times in the last 20 million years. It leaves fossilized magnetization in Earth's rocks. We can go back in time and observe when these changes occurred by using a drill to take cores or columns of sediment seafloor that look like straws and can reach down to 300 meters. Dr. Thauveny and his colleagues studied 2 types of elements to learn more about the history of the Earth's magnetic field. To reverse polarity, the magnetic field must diminish by around 90% to a certain level. This can take thousands of years, and during that time, our planet's absence of a magnetic field allows more high-energy particles from other areas of the universe to enter. When this occurs, more and more atoms in our atmosphere, such as nitrogen and oxygen, are bombarded by cosmic rays. This causes cosmogenic isotopes such as carbon-14 and beryllium-10 to fall to the surface. We can determine when the polarity changed by looking at how many of these are in the cores. It appears to be simpler than it is. There was a transition between 772,000 and 774,400 years ago, and the field has nearly flipped the other way 15 times since then. This is known as an excursion, and it occurs when the field's strength dips significantly but does not reach the threshold required before returning to normal. When the field begins to weaken and then starts to get stronger again, that is when we face the greatest potential for danger. The last excursion took place about 40,000 years ago, and there are indications that we are on our approach to experiencing it again. According to Dr. Tuvani, the geomagnetic field has lost 30% of its intensity during the last 3,000 years. That is not good. Based on this figure, his team predicts it will be close to zero in a few hundred or thousand years. What do you think about the poles shifting? Let us know in the comments below.